call, please.
Joe.
Here.
Ralph.
Here.
Bill. Kim. Kathy.
Here.
Mary Jane. Here.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the meetings from last month? So need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Ralph.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Bill. Kathy.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Mary Jane. Yes.
I need a motion to approve warrants and payroll timesheets.
I believe that the ones in time sheets be approved.
And I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Mary Jane. Yes. Bill.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Kim. Yes. Kathy.
Yes.
Need approval for transfer of police revenue from general fund to police fund.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Joe.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Kim. Yes. Kathy.
Yes.
Mary Jane.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes. Approval of the police fund monthly operating fund transfer. Need a motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Joe.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Kim. Yes. Kathy. Yes. Mary Jane. Yes.
Need a motion to approve interest transfers.
I move that the amounts be transferred to the appropriate funds.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mary Jane. Yes. Kathy.
Yes.
Kim. Yes. Bill.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
All right, Susan, no here, so we'll go to committee reports. Chief?
The police department handled 133 calls for service in June. We took 20 reports, made 1 arrest, and issued 5 citations. All the officers had firearms qualifications, which everybody passed without any problems, so we're good for another year.
Anybody have anything else? Building?
Nothing. Unless something's come up that I'm not aware of.
Okay. Streets, the only thing I have on streets is the dump truck will be here tomorrow. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. And while we're on that, on the fuel, since we got the Gator, for 30 days, from 5/15 to 6/15, we used $12.99 in gas, fuel, versus the average the month before was $209 for fuel. So it's going to be eventually it's going to make money. It's going to be worthwhile. So. All right, and
Oh, wait, on the streets?
yeah.
I noticed up there in not English, Shady Lane, they used to paint the curves up there, and those haven't been painted for a while. I didn't know.
Billy's in the process of getting
Okay.
paint, and he's been checking on, we painted, 10 days later, looks like we haven't painted. So I had to call the county, I had to call the state to see if there's anything better out there they use than what we're using. And their best advice was to put the crushed glass beads or something in it. It gives it a rough texture where it lasts longer, so he's in the process of ordering the beads for that. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with the curb, but I'm talking about the painting on the street, so he is in paint mode is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. Okay, Susan,
Thank you. Sorry I'm a little late.
that's all right.
It's been a long day already. I just really wanted to talk to you about a couple things. One, we're still on schedule as far as I know for the construction on Washington Street to start at the end of July. I have reminded ProGrade that we want to have a site meeting with them approximately 2 weeks prior to their beginning work, just so that everybody has an understanding of who each other is and, you know, what we're talking about, if there's any questions or concerns or anything before we get started on the project, obviously. So that's kind of in process. The other reason I'm here this evening is the issue 2 applications for Preble County are due to the engineer's office on July 26th, which will be before your next meeting. Your Cherry Street project is in the pipeline to be considered for funding this year. If you were here last year and remember, we kind of held ours back and let El Dorado skip ahead of us a year just because we didn't really feel like we were ready yet financially because of, things that were going on. So we kind of, held it back. We let El Dorado skip in front of us. So now we're in El Dorado's spot, which means this year is the year to be considered for funding. So I don't know if you're interested in resubmitting your application. The project originally was to put storm sewer on Cherry Street from Washington Street down into the existing outlet that's kind of there where the curb stops. And we were out here today and kind of reviewed that with Billy. And then the other item would be a new curb and sidewalk from Washington Street, and it was originally down to Jefferson Street. And that was what we called Phase 1. Phase 2 was going to be from Jefferson Street down to wherever the curb and sidewalk ended, and then basically a repaving of that area of street. With the fact that you're on the ODOT radar for paving in 2015, just like with Washington Street, I think your money might be better served if you let ODOT pay for the paving and do the paving, and you basically just do the curb and sidewalk and storm sewer piece of the project. So with the project the way it was to begin with, we were at a $271,000 budget, and I brought that with me this evening for you to look at. And when we were here today, we did some numbers to include the rest of Cherry Street from Jefferson down to the, kind of like where the last house was on each side, where the existing curb and sidewalk is. We're not extending it, it would just be replacing the existing, just kind of more for it was really more for my thoughts about, how much more money is that? Is it worth looking at? Is it something, where else could we fund that from, that piece? Since we're not really going to put the paving with it, because before it was going to be a bigger project because we were going to do that little section plus the paving. With that being the case that we're going to let ODOT take care of the paving, I just kind of wanted to see where it was at. So the first page that you have there is basically the project as it stands, which is the storm sewer all the way down, and then it's a 24-inch storm sewer, and there'll be 8 catch basins along the way to kind of pick up the water in the gutters, and then it would be new curb and new sidewalk. And that was your original project, and the curb and sidewalk would be from Washington to Jefferson Street. We originally did a 26% match, which is kind of what we've normally done, which was $71,000, and we asked for a $200,000 OPWC grant. The scoring of that scored out to be last year anyway, it scored out at 80 points. This year, because of some changes in the way that they're doing the scoring and the fact that they will no longer let you use a thoroughfare plan, which anybody that's been on here for a while, a number of years ago, we passed what was called a thoroughfare plan, and it basically said what streets within the village were major streets, minor streets, collector streets, arterial streets, and then we submitted that thoroughfare plan with our application every year, and if you were dealing with a major street for New Paris, it would get 10 points. And Cherry Street, Washington Street, Spring Street, all those were considered major streets for the village of New Paris. Well, as of this coming round, if you have a thoroughfare plan, a local thoroughfare plan, they don't care anymore. And they're basically saying, you can have it, but we're not going to look at it. We're not going to score anything according to that. And the only thing that they're going to use is the ODOT functional classification map. So because of that, basically your streets in town will not be considered a major thoroughfare anymore. They're going to be considered a major collector. So you're going to lose 3 points right off the bat because of these changes that they've made. The other place that you're going to lose some points is they have, we don't have the Washington Street project done, so we're going to lose a couple points there. We still will score at 74 points if you got some points from the County, you could score anywhere from 79 to 89. If we did an MBE, we could score anywhere from 79 to 89. If we didn't get MBE, we'd be at 77 to 87. And MBE is a minority business enterprise, which means you commit to purchasing some of the, like all the storm sewer material would come from an MBE supplier. We did that on phase 2 of the Washington Street project where we bought all the water line from an MBE supplier, and we got 3 extra points on our application because of that. So that's just something that we needed to, I just wanted to bring to your attention. In 2012, the cutoff for the points was 81. So it took 81 points to be funded in the district. So you would have to get 10 district priority points or 15 district priority points, or county priority points, sorry, 10 county priority points or 15 county priority points to basically be in that fund, what I would consider to be the funding range. If we would fall short of that and be at, say, the 79 points, we would probably fall right under there, and we could probably be kicked to small government, which is like another pot of money that the state has, that any communities that have a population of less than 5,000 can enter into and be a part of. I got 2 different projects in this last year funded through small government. They have a $500,000 cap on the grant that you can ask for, which is obviously less than what, or more than what we need. And I did do a preliminary scoring on that, and you scored at probably somewhere between 57 and 63 points. And 63 points is with the least amount of district points that you could get. You can either get 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, depending on what ranking you're at with the district when they send your application. So if you got the lowest ranking, you would be at 63 points. The cutoff this year in that was 61. So I think, even if we wouldn't get funded on the district level and we could get bumped to small government, you'd probably have a good chance of being able to fund through that.
Would that still be available to be done, to be used this year? then?
No, the money would be available on July 1st of 2014 regardless, whether we get it funded through the
Okay,
district
no matter what,
or whether
it
you,
may
yes.
not be-
Yeah, the money always comes out at the same time every year, which is July 1st. That's the time it comes out every year, and that's how it's been for 27 years.
And we stay in the pipeline, we go ahead and stay in the pipeline, and if we get it, we can still say, sorry, we
Yes.
changed our mind,
Yes.
so we're not obligated.
Absolutely.
So the wise thing here is to
Keep your name in there.
say yes, go forward, but
Yeah, and if you would get the grant, say you get the grant application comes, something changes, and we talked about that last year, or a couple years ago, we almost talked about not moving forward. And even though we signed the grant agreement, we talked about not moving forward, which is kind of why the Washington Street project kind of got delayed. That obviously could happen again. They do have people that fall off the list because they can't come up with their match or what have you. The other thing I guess I wanted to bring up is on the second page of what's attached there is basically West Cherry Street, where we would replace the curb and sidewalk completely. And as you can see, we're talking about another probably $40,000, $44,000 to do the rest of it, which would be the curb and the sidewalk, from Jefferson Street down to the end. So if we wanted to look at doing the whole thing, basically there's the cuts kind of 81.9 and 233,100 would be the OPWC share. I don't know how you feel about that, if you feel like that's too much. Obviously we could probably take that 40,000 and maybe go after some CDBG money. You could probably, pick up, $35,000 from there and come back and do that little section later. The other option we could have is we could go in with our original project. When we go to bid it, we could go ahead and put it on the plans and bid it as an alternate. And then if you could do one half or the other half or all of it, because the bids came in well enough. We've been fortunate enough in the last few projects that we've done that we've gotten really good competitive bids, just like, the Washington Street project came in about $30,000 under budget. You know, it might be that we can just go in with where we want to be, see how the bids come out. If it ends up, you know, we can bid it as an alternate, you know, to add that to the project, the construction part of it, and you can decide at that point, which would be however much down the road, but we couldn't ask for any more grant money at that point. You know, whatever grant money you ask for is what you get now, and if it would work within that same budget and you can do more, that's fine, but if it wouldn't, you'd have to put in any extra money over and above what we asked for and what you committed, so. I guess I know it's kind of confusing, but I guess I just felt like because we weren't looking at another $200,000 project and it was a smaller piece, you might want to consider it, you know, again, if you feel like that's too big of a chunk of change to try to commit, you know, we could still always go look at CDBG or something else to try to get that little piece later. Or, you know, do the alternate bid and see where we're at. Or both. So what questions do you have about that? Did I make it too confusing? I hope not.
So you need a motion for us to proceed by the
Yeah.
July 26th?
Basically, I have a resolution for you to pass that basically just submits the application. It doesn't commit you to any amount of money. And then you guys can decide what you want to commit to. And then JMO will have to sign off on a certificate or a CFO, or Certificate of Financial Officer, which says that, you know, you commit the money and she certifies that on her behalf as fiscal officer. I don't have to have that tonight. If you don't want to, if you want to have a special meeting to pass the resolution, you can. I just have to have it by the 26th. They might, your next meeting wouldn't be till the 5th. I know that the meeting that they're having to do the scoring, I believe, is the 14th. No, Monday, August the 12th. Being that's the case, they might let us pass the resolution here, but you wouldn't be able to really decide how much money because you'd already have to have figured that out by here. Does that make sense? So I don't know that holding up on the resolution is really going to gain you anything. Does that make sense?
No,
So there's that.
sorry.
When we
Need to get that
submit the
resolution
when we submit the application, we should submit a resolution and the certificate of financial officer
Okay, so we have to
certification.
decide before the 26th.
Yes, technically,
What
yes.
we want to do.
Yes, yes,
As far as what we want to ask for.
correct.
But if we already have the resolution, then all it is a matter of deciding
The money part.
which project, the whole thing, or
Right.
partial, or alternate.
Right.
Okay.
You know, or if you want to, you know, take it back down into something smaller, I mean, that's obviously an option too. We could look at the whole thing and cut it in half, or, you know, do less if that's what you want, if you only want to do the storm sewer part. But just keep in mind that it's going to be awful hard to do the curb. You can't really do the curb after the paving, or you don't really want to, or you're going to end up with that wedge for the next 10 plus years. And then I think you're going to end up with, you know, some issues. You're going to have to constantly crack seal that in order to keep the water from going down in there and popping that asphalt back off. So I mean, you really don't want to do that after the paving. Obviously, the sidewalk, we could maybe do the sidewalk as a separate project because the sidewalk's not really tied to the curb. I mean, that would be an option, but
What is the non-reinforced concrete pavement?
that's the driveways.
Those are driveways,
Yeah, that's the driveways.
so is it just?
They're concrete driveways, yeah. When it says non-reinforced, that means it's not like that's an ODOT term, meaning it's not like a,
Basically the same material sidewalks are made of?
yeah, only it's thicker. It's usually an 8-inch, driveways are 8-inch where sidewalks 4-inch.
What's council prefer to do on this? If they want to proceed to stay on the pipeline, we need to decide whether you want to go with the 71 investment or the 81 investment. I personally think we ought to go with a smaller amount we're not making a commitment, we're just, okay, we need to tell her tonight that to proceed at the July 26th to keep us in the loop here, and that we sign off on which project we want to do this resolution tonight and pass it as emergency, so she can have that, just so council so chooses.
And then most likely by August the 12th, when they have that meeting, you'll at least know where you score where the county's concerned. And then it would be probably October or November by the time that we knew anything about the district.
Does that make a difference whether you decide to do all or?
That's just more of a local decision. By keeping the share at 26%, the only difference in the score is you're going to lose a couple points because you're asking for less than 200,000. There's a tier in there where you get some points based on how much money you request. And if you request $200,000 to $100,000 to $200,000, you get 5 points. If you're at $200,001 to $400,000, it's 3 points, so you lose 2 points.
Why such a big difference on the contingency too? That there's 10% you've got on the one, and the other one looks like it's a lot less than 10%.
It is because when I did this one originally, I had the traffic and the mobilization as part of the contingency, and I split those out in this one. And then when we did the second one, it was really just a little better estimate, just because we came out and actually measured some stuff versus just measuring it off of like a Google map or your aerial topos that we have.
My opinion would be to go with the smaller one.
I just want to make sure I know, but I've not done this in a long time.
Sure, you can.
The smaller amount entails more points to us.
Yeah,
Is that
you're
correct?
gonna
So we
lose
would
2
have 2
points, yeah.
But 2 points might make a difference.
It can, yes.
Sometimes 1 point makes a difference.
Yes,
I've
it
been there,
can.
I've been there, and, you know, we got the Washington Street project because I was sitting there and I said, well, we got the post office, which is the safety factor. They give us 2 or 3 points, and my memory fails me now. And when they give us that, that's what give us the Washington Street project to start with. Because the engineer said, well, that's a good point. That's a safety issue. It's 2 or 3 points. I
Yeah,
forget what it
yeah,
was.
you got 4
A couple
actually.
points makes a big difference in those meetings.
Yeah, it does. I have a project that missed being funded through small government by 2 points. So yeah, I mean, 2 points is a lot. And it's very competitive.
I would say the smaller amount also.
If that's an agreement, we need a motion to proceed at the July 26th meeting to keep us in the loop.
I'll make a motion. Motion for us to submit the ordinance or the resolution and
We have to do the resolution first.
Well, submit the application.
application on July 26th
For the Cherry Street project.
for the West Cherry Street project in the amount of estimated cost of $271,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Kim, Kathy, Joe,
Yes.
Mary Jane.
Yes.
All right, we'll do this, we'll go ahead and do this for resolution at 9. I'm assuming is that okay with everybody? So we're going to have a special meeting. I need a number, please.
Would be 2013-09.
Okay, resolution number 2013-09, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the village of New Paris, Ohio to prepare and submit an application to
Participate.
Participate, thank you, in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or Local Transportation Improvement Programs, and to execute the contract as required and declaring an emergency. Whereas the state capital improvement programs and local transportation improvement provide financial assistance with political subdivisions for capital improvements to the public infrastructure, and whereas the Village of New Paris, Ohio is planning to make the capital improvements to the Cherry Street, and whereas the infrastructure improvement herein above described is considered to be a priority need for the community and is a qualified project under the Ohio Public Works Commission program. Now therefore be it resolved by the Village of New Paris, Ohio, Section 1, the mayor is hereby authorized to apply to the Ohio Public Works Commission for funds to make improvement on Cherry Street. Section 2, the mayor is further authorized to enter into agreement as may be necessary and appropriate for the obtaining of financial assistance. Section 3, this resolution is hereby declared an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservations of health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the Village of New Paris, Ohio, as there is a time limitation for the application of such financial assistance, and that this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from after its passage and approved by the mayor. Is there recommendation to accept resolution 2013-09?
I move that we suspend the three reading rule, declare an emergency, and pass
We
on a
gotta do,
single.
we gotta accept the resolution, the motion on the resolution first, and then,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, we gotta
Very
accept
well, I move that we pass resolution
2013-09.
1309.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Joe,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Kim, Mary Jane,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Now I need a motion to accept this as an emergency.
Anybody else? All right, I will move that we declare an emergency and suspend the three reading rule on this ordinance 2013-09.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Mary Jane?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kim? Bill? Ralph?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
You're very welcome.
Also, now, before Susan gets away, I ask council to consider, to be ready to consider this month as to whether we want to go ahead and try and use the rest of the grant money from the Phase 3 Washington Street project. The match on the rest of the money was $32,000 to get 82, which would give us a total of 114. Has council made any decisions about that?
That was for Cherry Street and, no.
That would
Shady
be,
Lane.
that was applied for the rest of the grant money. We only used part of the grant money on the portion of Phase 3, because we didn't feel like at the time we was going to be able to meet our obligations on our percentage of it. Situation has changed now, and it looks like we have the money to obtain this additional $82,000. So we can go ahead and use it, or we can give it back to them and they can take it somewhere else.
I'd like to use it.
Me too.
It's so hard to get it.
Can we still do Shady Lane?
That's, we can pick the jobs afterward. Right now, we need a motion to move forward with applying or accepting the financial responsibility of the $32,000 to continue to get the rest of the money in Phase 3.
I make a motion that we use that 30,000 or 32,000 to apply to another
Yeah, because
project.
you originally had committed 97, and then you changed your commitment back to 65. So that other 30, you kind of,
Raising our commitment by
Yeah,
32,000.
but you had
so we would
originally-
Get an additional
82,000.
Yeah. So we're at 63 or 65 now, we're on 32, we're back up just about where we was at to start with. Originally, we didn't think we were going to be able to handle that. Now we can. We have an opportunity to use some gift money here. I think we should do that. So we have a motion. Did we have a second? I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Mary Jane?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay, Susan.
Okay, then I think the only other thing is just if you want to, if you got some ideas about where you think you want to use it, we can, and we don't need to decide that at this point.
Right, but we're going to have it for this construction meeting with Broke
It
Creek.
would be nice if we could, yes, and since we've got bid numbers, those numbers can't change, so whatever the bid numbers are, we just kind of really need to figure the quantities And then based on whatever quantities for wherever you want to go, we can take
Right.
care of that.
I know you're in a hurry tonight, once the
That's fine.
council will decide that, we'll call you.
That's
Right
fine.
now,
That's fine.
I suggested last month that we look at Lincoln Lane and Shady Lane as far as milling and repaving.
Okay.
We'll see what council decides.
That's
I mean, we also talked about the patch between the water plant down to Lincoln,
Mhm.
which the distance is about the same.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, I'd rather complete two projects as to patch one, but
Mhm.
we'll see what council decides.
That's fine, yeah, that's totally your choice. I don't know if at your next meeting, if I'll have a pay request from ProGrade yet. If not, I'm sure I'll probably have one by your September meeting, so I'll be back as soon as I have that. And if you need something in between, just let me
And
know.
I'll call you with council's answer, so you know what to look at for figures.
That'll be fine.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. So while we're on this, anyone given any thought to this, what they might want to try and do, or what streets they would like to do?
Both the streets mentioned, I feel, could use paving. There's no doubt.
Susan, we can accept the grindings, right?
I would need to check to see if they're getting any kind of credit for those. If they're not getting credit for them, then I would say yes. If they are getting credit, then you probably either have to give them the credit back.
Well, there's also the trucking part of it right here versus wherever they have to haul it to, we may be over something
Right,
like that.
it depends on whether the people that's gonna come in and do the grinding, are selling them.
Right,
So,
exactly.
but we can find that out.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just
That's fine,
thought
you're fine,
that.
no problem.
Back to what council feels about projects. Anyone else?
I like the idea of the Shady Lane and the Lincoln Lane.
I measured the other day, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me tonight, we was within 100 feet of exactly the same distance on Cherry and on Lincoln Lane, so, we could either try and submit, if we choose to go that way to the people, maybe, this is what we got, can you do it for this amount of money, or we may have to cover that other 100 feet in asphalt, I don't know.
I think it was 114,000 was kind of what I estimated it to be.
Yeah.
And now we're around 82.
But for 100 feet more, we could completely do Lincoln Lane up there. Now, there's a couple of issues that's going to have to be addressed up there before if we choose to go that route, have water running out a couple of those, and I don't know who lives there, but have water running out of their backyard, whether it keeps it wet all the time. And we got to stop that, or it does us no good to pave.
Yeah, no.
So that's a problem we have to address, but we may have to tie that in, up there to a storm sewer somehow. It just runs continuously down that street there, and so it is no good at all.
Like somebody
Hey,
sits on it.
We don't know whether it's I don't know whether it's, I don't know whether, I don't think it's a sub, I think it's just a spring back there, it's running into the street, they put a pipe out to the gutter, and it runs down the street all the time.
Okay.
I've been told, I don't know, but I've been told there's a 4-inch pipe that was put in years ago behind all them houses up there for everybody to tie into. I just learned this the other day, so I haven't had a chance to really get into it, was waiting to see what council decided to do, but that's, doesn't, at this point, but that's something we'll have to address before we put pavement down that one, so.
Well, those two streets need to be put in a motion or conversation.
No, I think we can, we don't have to have a motion on that, do we, Susan? We don't have to name the streets, or we need to name those?
I think you need to name them, but you wouldn't have to name them until after we talk with them about it, and then you could name them at your office.
Let's do that. That way
So it would
we
be
need
a good
to-
idea for them to
I don't know
go
what-
3 areas in
think so.
case we
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah, I don't know what situation we're going to get into on this water thing up there. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know what's going
Yeah.
on.
What end is that located? I didn't know there was one up there like that.
About-
Is it on the cul-de-sac or is it back?
No, it's about midway up. Who lives there, Mike? Do you know? Where the
Uh,
water runs out all the time?
It's where the others used to live.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. That's the house where it comes out, then it feeds over between her property where Kirby Maine used to live. It comes down to there, but it really goes back behind The Donor's Old
Is it coming through the pipe and then onto the street, or is it coming on the grass?
They ran a,
No, they run a pipe.
they ran a pipe,
So they were
They
aware of that a long time ago.
and they
There's
couldn't
a lot
come
of
through the driveways,
artesian
they ran
wells.
behind the house and came between the two properties where the pipe comes out.
I see.
Do you know whether there's a tile back there behind the backyards? Do you know? I was told the other day there
I
was.
just been told that there was too. I haven't walked back there to look.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to address that and find out, I mean, we're gonna have to correct that problem, and paving ain't gonna stay there if that water's running out there continuously. I mean, so we're gonna have to address that. So that'll give us time to wait till next month to address that, and see what kind of problems we're gonna get into with that.
There's artesian wells up there all over the place.
Yeah.
And when Billy Pennington Heisel was building her house, the basement walls caved in because of it being too wet. And I'm pretty sure there is a tile up there.
Okay.
I can't remember what year they put it in.
Now that we're considering this and moving forward with this, we'll do some more investigating, see what we
Yeah.
gotta do to get this done, but we'll get that done, and that way we can have this for the next meeting and run the streets at that point and move forward, so. All right, thank you, Susan, I think that's it for us, okay? Appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Lights,
I know, something's happening during the rain.
finance. Joe, anything?
Do we have anything?
Sanitation, Mary Jane? Bill?
Yeah.
I would like to, Mary Jane has been looking at properties. There has been some citations that have been sent out. I would like to let everybody know the procedures for that. There's a citation sent out, it's sent through
A notice, citation notice.
notice that the chief takes out now. After that, after your, excuse me. There's a compliance letter that is to be sent 10 days, and then after the approval, 5 days after receiving. There's a final notice, and then the citation to the court. I would like to read the first compliance letter. The property owners, business owners are responsible for their properties. The exterior premises shall be maintained and achieved present appearance to avoid effects of hazardous conditions to the city of the Village of New Paris. Action must be taken on behalf to cease the problems within 10 days or file appeals forms within 5 days to the village. If problems have not ceased within 10 days, no appeals form received within 5 days, the final notice will be sent. The Village of New Paris will then take further action if property has not come into compliance. 10 days after the final notice, a summons to appear in court will be issued with a possible fine of $500 plus all costs and/or possible jail times. The Village of New Paris may correct the problems at this time. The village hires most of its cleanup and mowing jobs need to be done to correct the violations. The cleanup costs plus all other costs associated with the job on the whole, such as renting or buying equipment, gas and dumping fees, all monies in this property cleanup are owed to the Village of New Paris in excess to your property taxes. You have the rights to appeals. There are appeal forms that you can get here.
Yeah, there's some here.
To remedy this problems, you return the appeals form to the village.
And there's meetings set up and it's discussed and
I'm sorry, who hears the appeal?
we have an appeals form for sanitation.
Oh.
Yeah. land transfer is, haven't heard back from that yet. It's almost completed.
That's the one down in Washington.
Yeah, Billy had to send a letter to the maps there in the courthouse. And then when I hear from the attorney, we'll pick that up, and all copies have to be sent to ODOT. As far as the Moving Ohio Forward grant, we have letters sent out. I have the health board working on one property, trying to help me get it condemned. And I think those will be, one is the down on Whitewater Avenue, 204, that was burnt. And the other one is 138 North Washington Street. Those are going good. The attorney sent out, wrote up letters and we sent them out. Haven't heard back from those yet, but if it's condemned, then we can get it on the list to be torn down, the one that's burnt. There will be, for sure, the house at 301 West Main Street that was set on fire. It will be coming down towards the end of this year. They haven't given me a tear down date yet. And also, is it 309 East Cherry Street, that one across from you, where Alderman used to live? Okay. It will be coming down also. It really doesn't look all that bad on the outside, but the inside's a disaster. No,
It's
it's,
on the alley there, across from Kevin Davis.
so that's been a real hassle, trying to get the
But they're still. on
the
board.
attorneys from the other loan companies and all, but we're still working on it, and they've given me till the 1st of August to get all that information to them.
The two of those have already been accepted.
Yes, 2 have been accepted.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all. Thanks, Kevin, you got anything down?
Yeah, that's fine. All right, good, keep up the good work, let's try to get it cleaned up. Planning, nothing, BPA, no one's here. There were some questions, that the council, Ralph, you asked last month about the bridge at Spring. As far as the fire trucks going on top of it, I think you talked with Billy, I know I talked with Billy, and Billy said he called the state, and there is no load zone, no loading on small bridges, but he did tell me that the state inspector was due in sometime this year to look at Spring, one on Spring and one on Walnut, so.
The one on Walnut seems to be in worse shape than the one on Spring, according to what Billy tells me. We've got a meeting with the fire department a week from tonight. I'm going to suggest to kind of stay away from the Walnut Street one because of the questionable, until the engineer, somebody comes back with some better numbers, but Spring Street, I think, is still usable for truck traffic, so I think we're good there. But the Walnut Street is questionable.
I mean, it's not like the whole truck sitting on there, usually part of it's
Correct.
over before, it's not like the whole weight sitting on top of these two
There
small
used to
bridges.
be load limits on those, I don't know whatever happened to
There
some.
still should be, to some
Yeah.
degree, but that was always up to the county. When the county turned the bridges back over to the village, they had nothing to do with it. Like, we're back to square one because they're not going to help us with
Yeah,
that.
give us a
Yeah.
load
Yeah.
anyway, so.
They could care less, at this point. And if something happens, we're going to be responsible if it falls in. And that's the scary thought.
Alrighty, that brings us up to discussion tonight on the chronic nuisance ordinance. There will not be a first reading tonight because we need to make some adjustments here to make these numbers fit our ordinance numbers. So there will not be a first reading tonight on this, but there is open discussion. If council had a chance to look this over, I'd like to have their opinion on this.
things and give some information. If you'll look at what the ordinance mean, that particular paragraph calls for 3 or more nuisance activities at a property. And this is just minor and minor things, although more minor, not minor, but more minor things, in a 30-day period. The body of the ordinance calls for 3 or more in a 90-day period. We'll have to decide which we want to do. Nuisance activities being not felonies and not the activities stated in that particular paragraph as drug offenses, firearm offenses, more, those things are more, are worse offenses. And it calls for 2 of those, or 1 felony, and they go to a 1-year period for felonies. However, we need to decide if drug and disorderly or whatever is going on, and the police are called there 3 times. 3 times in 30 days or 3 times in 90 days.
I would like to see a change to the 90 days, personally.
I would too. Chris, what about you?
I agree. That gives us,
More
right,
to work with.
because if you set it at 30 days, and the people know that ordinance in effect, they're gonna be watching that 30-day mark, and as soon as that 30 days over, it starts all over, then they start all over.
I agree. They know how to play the system.
And to address questions in the audience, the reason that we're thinking about putting this ordinance in place is because the police department is getting more out going back to the same places all the time. I mean, that one place was like 8 times in 7 days.
Let me say one thing. Why should I be responsible for you? I rent you a place. Why do I have to be penalized?
Well,
Or why would you come to the landlord?
Because you're accepting a nuisance operation.
No, I'm not. I rent this.
I know you do, and you rent that as a business, and you're running a business, and when you run a
And you
business,
know
and you're
people that
contributing,
I deal with.
and you're contributing to a nuisance, then you have to fall under that same umbrella.
How do
You
we
you can contribute to a crime and not even be involved in it, can't you, Chris?
Well, how would you expect us to get them to move? They
The
pay
only
the
thing you
rent.
can do is monitor it as best as you can as a landlord.
We do.
I know you do, but I know, I'm not saying you're not doing your job as a landlord, but what I'm saying is it needs to be tweaked a little bit more to try to control.
I can only tweak so much.
What
I
is
go
it?
now, I take applications.
What is-
I ask for information from people. They can only give me so much.
Right, but you
Because the
still,
federal government,
at the end of the day, though, you are still responsible for what goes on inside that building.
I can't believe it.
Can't be.
Wouldn't this be
Wouldn't
another?
stand up and
Oh,
fight
you
along.
don't think it would?
No, I don't.
You don't think it would either?
No, because I own properties in this town.
Well, I owned property in this town before too, and I had to address that issue several times
You
myself.
can't control everything everybody does in your
No, I
property.
can't control what you do behind my
I
place.
understand that, but
But
if I
your place
rent,
needs fixed up.
if I rent off, my place needs fixed up,
Yeah.
do you know where I live, sir?
I know the house you got.
Where do I live?
I'm not talking where you live, I'm talking one you own.
The one I own right now, if you tell me my house needs fixed up right now, and you tell me where, I'll fix it, but I'll guarantee you walk about my house any day you want to. And that gentleman right back there can tell you the same thing.
Well, you can mine
And
too.
you find a spot on my house that needs addressed, and I'll address
I
it
can
tomorrow.
talk about maybe your
Okay.
house, something you own.
All right.
But
Bob,
anyways, what
Bob,
I'm-
we're not pointing fingers at anybody, but we do have some people that may not be taking the care that you take in screening your participants, and it's creating problems and expenses to the village. So we can't single out, okay, you guys are good as a landlord, and this person's not as good as a landlord. We can't do that. So the only thing we can do is try and control the process to let, if we're having to send patrol cars down there all hours of the night repeatedly, time and time again,
Arrest the people.
that's
Take 'em out.
expense to the village.
Wouldn't you be
And
able
we're gonna
to
try
pass?
and control some of that.
wouldn't you be able to pass this on to your tenant if it became a nuisance situation where you were
Yeah.
fined? Wouldn't you be able to pass that along to your tenant, and if they wouldn't pay it, then you would have grounds to evict them?
But then when you go to the court down there, you give them $300 paying their support. And then they tell you, you got to give them 90 days before you can even get them out.
At
I've
one
done
time,
that
it was
around.
3 years before you could get them out. I don't know what it is today, but.
I got one that walked out and owed me $1,900.
That's the cost of doing business.
But yeah, when it comes to tax time, you got to have a there.
Is it the cost of doing business?
No.
It's the
I've
cost
worked
of,
hard all my life, I built these places. And then somebody comes in there and says, I gotta be responsible because I rented to somebody?
We can
This has
argue
never
about
happened
something.
before, and this has been 40 years I've been in this business.
Well, then what?
But it's gotten somewhat out of hand.
That's
So
not
we
my
have
fault.
to pass laws, we have to pass ordinances to try to control.
I can tell you the city of Eden has passed this ordinance. I can tell you that Camden is looking at this ordinance. I can tell you there's a lot of villages looking at this ordinance.
Well, what are we supposed to do, Rick? Are we supposed to just close these damn
No, that's
apartments
not
up?
what we're asking, Bob. We're trying to control some of the problems that we're having here.
Don't you think I have problems?
We're trying to help you just like.
We're trying to help you to
We're
be
trying to
able to
help you
control
too, really.
How are you
If
gonna
you
help
look at
me by
it, if you look
saying
at it with an
that?
open mind, we're trying to help you too, get rid of the nuisance that goes on in your property, if it is your property, and I'm not saying this is your property, I'm talking to you as a landlord. If there's nuisance going on in your property as a landlord,
How do I
it
know?
helps you get rid of that nuisance because of the stuff that they may do to that property,
How do I
to
know
the,
this?
to the traffic.
Because with this ordinance, we will be notified.
You have to
We will be
notify.
sending you a
But we're not-
notice
You
that
have time
we're having
to
this issue.
remedy the situation.
It's it's not a situation where we're getting immediate
For
call
any-
and fine you.
No.
If we get called back there several times.
I
we will
think it's
notify.
discrimination, and I also think that it's illegal that I be responsible for somebody else.
do you have a contract when you're,
A lease agreement.
we have a rental agreement?
Agreed. Yes, I did.
Does it say in there if there's police activity at your,
Not police activity, but we don't allow dope or anything,
Loud noise.
loud noise, no. But you guys ought to have an ordinance. And
If
I'm
they're doing
saying, you're-
something wrong, they should be arrested.
But some of the
And
rules
that's their
that
job.
that you're applying on your contract, like noise and drugs and some of the other stuff that you're requesting from your tenants, we're requesting that too from the general public, similar to that. With this ordinance here, it's noise, drugs,
And
and we
also,
carry it on to the arrest factor.
you will know, but this way, you may not know what's going on with the property, but if Chris has an issue, or the police department has an issue, and they show
they
up
don't
there,
do much
they're
about it
going
either.
to notify you.
They break the window out, it's the end of it.
They're going to notify you that you're having a problem with the situation. They ain't automatically going to go to the worst scenario here, but it's a process of being able to tell the landlord, hey, you've got an issue here, you got a problem. Can you address the
I
problem?
agree with that.
And if you cannot address the problem at some point, then it's going to exceed up to fines. But hopefully, by being aware, just like you said, you don't know what's there going on there, but if the police department is called down there for a situation, you're going to be notified that there was a situation.
Okay.
So it's a stepping stone for the police department to be able to control some of this activity that's going around and some of the properties here in the village. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I'm not saying one's good, one's bad, I'm just saying it's a way to start to control some of it.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, he does that now. I mean, we discuss things periodically, and I try to take action on it. There's certain things I can do and certain things I can't do legally. And then you're saying, though, and if I read this correct, let's say that I can't do nothing, and then you're going to come back and fine me?
why do you think you can do nothing?
Because I
Well,
can't.
you can evict a person for anything.
No, I can't.
Yes, you can. I own property, Bob. You can evict a person for anything. It doesn't matter if they're up to date on rent or whatever. If you don't like them living there, you can evict them.
I think you're wrong.
It costs you money, I will agree to that. It costs you $400 now to evict somebody out. And we're not after to come up and fine you. Your property is probably the better properties that we have in town.
Well, you wouldn't even have a job, we wouldn't need you if I wouldn't have built some of this stuff.
Is it possible that if it's passed, that you can give your tenants a copy when they rent?
Or some of these things like that. It sounds to me like you already have most of the things, a lot of the things, I don't know about most. A lot of the things we're talking about as being chronic nuisances are already included in the lease agreement, the rental agreement that you have.
That's true, but people lie to you, they.
But they
cheat,
can't lie to you if you have a police report
It'll
with
be
a police
documented.
number on
It
it.
doesn't make any difference, they're still gonna mess with it.
I've had other landlords lie to get people out. I had one landlord,
Rick, you wanna buy them, why don't you just buy them? I'll sell them to you.
Somebody else is trying to buy.
but I had one that the landlord paid their first month's rent, their second month's rent, to get them out of their property.
We're not after the good landlords, Bob, we're after the bad landlords, the ones that keep causing problems, and repeat.
Is it the landlord or the people?
Well, it's not the landlord, but it's a way for a landlord to get the people to go.
I guess what you're really saying is.
It's not against the landlord, it's the way to control some of the situations and some of the things that repeat situation time and time and time and time.
But I think in your ordinance, if I follow it correctly, you can go after that person. Why don't you do that? Why go after the landlord?
It says you can. I'm sorry, there's some things we do not go after.
Why? That's just like eviction.
It's just like your broken window, Bob.
Yeah.
You know the situation we ran into there. This person says he did it, this person says he doesn't. What can I do? I can't charge this person if he's the only one that
No,
says it.
but we could run into that same circumstances on somebody calling.
Well, we just run into a lot of circumstances. With this ordinance, you know, when I get called to one of your places or somebody else's.
But who's
place,
gonna call you?
Listen to me, okay? When we get dispatched to a house 13 times in 8 days, you're gonna know about it. You're gonna have 13 police reports that says the police were there. That's your ammunition to take to Eaton Municipal Court.
Why would
Because you do not want to rent to a person like that.
Why would you be there?
Because we're getting dispatched there. Your neighbors are calling us. The people across the street are calling us. The people down the street are calling us. Then they
You
call
wouldn't
you.
have been there if you did not let
But
them
I mean,
move in the first place.
You would not have been there, we would not have been there if you wouldn't have run into them.
Well,
You didn't know that
I
gentleman
didn't.
was
But you
living
will.
there.
with
guys
this
do
ordinance.
background checks? Yes,
we
we
do the
do.
best we can.
Okay.
Bob,
Yes, we can do.
we're trying to limit the possibilities here, we're not picking on the landlord. We want to make you aware that if there's a situation going time and time again, you may not know it, if nobody tells you.
Why don't you
But the
make,
chief is going to tell you, because you're going to get a report back.
why don't you make the ordinance, but just eliminate the landlords?
Because nobody here is an absentee landlord. But you can walk up here and go around the corner and see what happens when the person doesn't live anywhere close to it, will rent it to anybody that's willing to pay for this nasty dump. And it's always rented, and he doesn't care who's in there. You know, you gotta get their attention somehow. You can't even have these places condemned, they're just not quite bad enough. But they're filthy, they're eyesores, there's drugs going on in them, and you know that, and, you know, I know our police department tries to catch people doing it. If they do, they just rent it to the next bunch. The only way to get their attention, and I don't mean anybody in here, because you all live right here, and you don't want that kind of stuff going. You don't want your property damaged, you don't want the neighbors there to be after you all the time, you don't want anything like this going on. This lets you know if it does. I don't anticipate that too many of you would even get a notice, or even hear anything like that, but if you did, it puts you in a position to say, wait a minute, I've got to go down here and say, you know, you're not down there 24/7, you don't know what's going on, none of you do.
And nor am I going to get in the middle of it.
And I understand that, I don't want you running down there with a ball bat and saying, quit it.
That if I
But
rented something to you, ma'am,
as other people like Eden, the ordinance is now in place, and the people they're having a problem child with, their landlords are going to start evicting them and moving their people out.
where are they gonna go?
Exactly.
No one here.
Exactly, Bob, exactly.
Where are they gonna go?
So,
Well,
are they
they're going right
going
over there,
to come
right
to
down
a
here.
village that has nothing in place to where they can't be harassed, or are they going to come to a place where they can get away with it?
Well, I don't think that I should be. If I rent to her, or like I said, any one of you people, I should be responsible for what you do. That is not, and it will go to court if that happens, because I don't think it will stand up.
You can't even go into someone's apartment without a 24-hour
Or
notice.
I'm not asking you to go into their apartment. We're just gonna let you know that there's activity, continuous
Yeah.
activity going on.
Well,
And at
then it
that
should
point,
be arrested.
at that point, you can make your decision whether you wanna retain the tenants or not retain those tenants.
I mean, that's fine, but wait, have you got it on there that you can find me?
Well,
Take that, just take that paragraph out.
so we notify you
Yeah.
and you do nothing. And if we don't have anything to ask you to do nothing, are you gonna do anything?
What can you do?
Are you gonna do
I'll
anything?
do whatever I
You
can
can
do.
do.
Okay.
But there's
But
a
what about,
limit
what
to
about the
what you can
person,
do
what
to
about
get
the
a
people
person
out here,
out.
what about the people out here that don't wanna try and do anything? So if you don't have a recourse for them, hey, if you don't do something, you're gonna get fined. It kind of puts you in the incentive to do something and not do nothing.
Well, what is your estimation of trying to do something and not do something? I mean, there's a lot of cases where you will not be able to get that person out of that apartment. As long as they pay
It takes
their
time
rent.
and money, and money.
I understand.
So why can't
It also takes time and money for us to have to respond to them continuously too.
why
That's his
should
job.
I be responsible?
So,
I'm paying taxes, big taxes.
okay,
So anyways, you people understand
we do,
I
Bob,
do
we really do.
We're not pointing fingers at you, Bob, you know.
We're not pointing
Well,
fingers at
still,
anybody. We
once
wanna
it
go-
goes into effect, it stays into effect, and that's the thing that bothers me more than anything, I guess. Sure, you need an ordinance if you don't already have one for noise, drugs, all this. I mean, you guys should have that now anyways, I don't know if you do or not.
We do.
So the only thing you're adding to this is making me liable. And I don't think.
We're asking landlords to be responsible for the tenants that they rent to. If it's a continuing situation where there is call after call after call and nothing's being addressed by the landlord, then there's going to be something addressed from this ordinance.
Well, I still think that,
And I mean, we're not out to pick on anybody, we're just trying to calm down some of the stuff that we got floating around here. And we all want to live in this community, we want to spend and keep this community up. Sometimes you got to have these necessary evils to keep that going.
are you responsible for everything that's in them rentals you got?
If I have an issue, if I'm being told that if I got an issue, I will address the issue. And I'm sure
Yeah,
if
you'll
you
address
have,
it.
I'm sure if you have a problem and you're notified, you will address the
I will
issue.
do that, yeah.
But John Doe over here may say, big deal, he pays rent, I don't care. Well, if John Doe says, big deal, I don't care, then you're going to get a fine. So you can address the issue or take your consequences. Simple as that. I mean, we're not saying the guys that do the good job, we're talking about the people that don't do nothing. And now they're going to either do something, and usually when you start making them pay, they usually do something. We're not out after the good people. There's some of the others around here that don't want to do anything or let anything go on, and we're going to correct that. So,
Most of them don't even live around here.
Well, I think one that was brought up to me by Chris was up on Spring and Main.
well, we're not going to,
But, you know, I have tried to do something. If they've had the opportunity to arrest them, arrest them.
and I'm sure if they have the opportunity and the authority to do so, they will. If there's a situation where they
So
can
if they
legally,
can't arrest them.
if it's a situation where they can legally arrest them, I guarantee you they'll be arrested.
But I say, if they can't do something, then how am I supposed to get rid of it?
I would suggest you evict them. But that's up to you.
I think it's pretty hard to do. We've been through that before with other people.
And we understand. I've been through it myself before.
Well, thanks for hearing me. I hope
It's
you
it's
guys
open
look at
discussion. I
it
mean, you know, so-
realistically and think about it if you was in my shoes.
Well, the only problem is you're not the only one in town, Bob. There's other people that has these rentals that doesn't do what you do.
It
So-
never would come up if
Yeah.
everybody was responsible and took care and wanted to.
Exactly.
or did their very best to rent
It
it.
ain't the village is picking on Bob Scheide, that's not the point here. The point is, we have some people here that just don't care. And they're gonna have to care or they're gonna pay. That's the way it is. So anyway, there'll be some, thank you, Bob. Your concerns are duly noted, and I understand it. I'm not landlord too, I understand it, but I also understand that we can't just continue to go back and spend resources and resources and resources. And, you know, yeah, we're a small little town. You start talking about Eaton, that's a pretty sizable town. You start talking about all the calls that they get, that's where they put this in order, this in place. There, you know, it takes resources to keep going back and back and back and back and back. So you gotta do something. So anyway, we will make some changes on this. We'll get this up to meet the right numbers on our ordinance, and we will have first reading on this next month, and it'll take 3 months before this is passed, so there's plenty of time for discussion. Anybody got anything else?
Hey, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we talked about bridges this week, but you didn't bring up the bridge that I mentioned on High Street. I know it got the minutes of last month's meeting.
Yes. Billy had looked at the bridge, and we called the county, the engineers and stuff to come down, and there's sometime this year, they didn't give us a date, they're gonna be in town, sometime this year. Now, if you can find out a better date than we can, please feel free to call the state and get that for us and let us know, but right now, they're just telling us, when we get there, we get there, so.
So you're gonna do anything about the main creek that runs through the village? It's getting pretty low.
There again, that belongs to the county. The county was already required for that cleaned up. Now, just like the bridges, the county's saying, well, guess what, we don't want to do it no more because our resources are low, so now you guys have got to do it. So there's quite a discussion going on here between the county and everyone, you know, all of a sudden they go, oh, well, we don't want to do that no more.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
but I can tell you right now that if we lose a bridge here in town, there'll be some road closed signs put up because we ain't got $300,000 to put a bridge in. So, you know, it's a difficult situation. Hopefully we don't ever, we have that issue, but, you know, the county's kind of slapped us and said, oh, it's yours now.
You want to roll out military tracks that lock on it. Drive right across.
Whatever. Next meeting will be August 5th, 7 o'clock. If nothing else from anyone else, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.